A few moments on the Parsha. This Shabbos we have the privilege of reading Parshas Chukas. The Parsha begins with the word Zos Chukas HaTorah. This is the statute, the law of the Torah, talking about how we go about maintaining the purity of our bodies, which eventually, ultimately, in the world and the way the world works, comes in contact with death. And death is tameh. And in order to reinstate the tahara, the purity, we have the statute of the para aduma, the mixing of the ashes of the red heifer with water, to make a mixture which is sprinkled on the person on the third day and on the seventh day. The 2 days of the third day, creation of the first vegetation on earth, and on the seventh day, the day on which the human being achieved completion through the attainment of a soul. There's only one other time in the entire Torah where the words Zos Chukas HaTorah are used, and that is in connection later on with the purity of the kalim, of the vessels that were taken in the spoils of the war of Midian, and how to maintain the purity of those vessels. Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch so beautifully points out that these two instances and institutions of the purity of both the human body and of the vessels in which the food he eats are cooked in and prepared in, both of them must acquire this level of purity, and the concept of a chok applies to both, because purity in its understanding and impurity in its understanding are only statutes which God ordained, and yet we are subject to those two, and Hashem wants us to maintain that purity and gives us the method by which we can achieve the purity of both our physical bodies and of the food we eat. The confluence of the both of these, using the word Zos Chukas HaTorah, is very essential because it gives us an understanding of how to live a meaningful life. Because without the faith in God, without the understanding of the mitzvahs of the Torah that maintain Tumah and Tahara, there is no meaning. Life has no meaning when it comes to death if there's no faith and belief in God. And objects in this world have absolutely no meaning if we don't attach them to the meaning that Hashem asked us to inspire them with. And so, to live a meaningful life, to live a life that has meaning, both life and death, and especially the life that comes after death, needs to have a source of meaningfulness in the divine. Once we recognize that we are a spark of the divine and that the soul is eternal and connected with God, then we can understand how even the physical things that we do and even the food we eat and the bodies we live in can have meaning, because they're connected with the concept of maintaining the chok given purity that is taught to us in this week's Seder. The chok given purity comes through the mixture of the ashes of the para aduma with mayim chayim, living waters. The red heifer, the para aduma, represents the most physical of attributes, red, totally red, and the water mixing the spiritual life-giving elixir of H2O together with that physical ash, mixing it together to sprinkle on the person in the pulse 7 times, gives us an understanding of the nature of the meaningfulness of life that is eternal, because we may come close to a dead body, but we don't sink into the abyss of thinking that beyond that there is nothing, because then The living life has no meaning. And we want to have a meaningful life. And so it's crucial to get behind the understanding of Zos Chukas HaTorah, which gives us the meaningful life that we Jews possess through the observance of Tumah and Tahara, impurity and purity. And we want to purify ourselves, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem, by immersing in the waters of the mikveh. And mikveh means hope. And we immerse in God and immerse in the hope, and that makes us Tohor, each and every one of us. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a pure, beautiful Shabbos of Tahara and life-giving soulfulness. As we say, Harachamanu Yanchilenu, Yom Shekulo Shabbos Umenucha L'Chayehu Olamim, the everlasting life of the soul of the Jew. Have a wonderful Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, Umevarach.